The clock ticked slowly in the small room where Mira sat alone. It was her 39th birthday. No one had called. No one had knocked on her door. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the fan above her head. She lit a small candle, placed it on a slice of bread, and whispered to herself, "Happy birthday, Mira." Then she blew it out and smiled sadly. She lived with her younger brother and his family. Her parents had passed away years ago. After that, she had taken care of the house, the children, and everyone else's needs. But in all those years, no one had asked her what she wanted. Outside there were loud sounds of music and laughter from the neighbor's house. It was a wedding. Mira watched from her window as people danced and smiled. She noticed girls much younger than her dressed in bright lehengas, surrounded by people praising their beauty. A guest nearby whispered loudly enough for her to hear, "That's Mira, still unmarried at her age. Poor thing." Mira stepped back from the window and closed the curtain. Her heart felt heavy, but she was used to it. These comments had followed her for years. Some relatives said she was too picky. Others said her time had passed. But Mira had not found someone who truly understood her, and so she had waited and waited, until the world decided she had waited too long. That night, after the wedding noise had died down, Mira went outside to take a walk. The air was cool, the streets quiet. She reached the local park, where she often sat alone. She looked up at the stars, trying to find some comfort in their calmness. She sat on a bench and pulled out her small notebook. It was filled with poems and little letters she had written to herself over the years. Some were hopeful, some were full of pain, but none of them had ever been shared. Just as she was about to leave, she noticed something unusual. A small folded paper was lying near the bench. She picked it up and looked around. No one was there. She opened the paper slowly. Inside was a short message written in neat handwriting. "You are still worthy. Don't give up on love." Mira stared at the words. Her hands shook slightly. Who could have written this? Was it meant for her? Her eyes searched the park, but it was empty. The message was simple, but it touched something deep inside hers, something that had long been quiet. The next morning, Mira kept thinking about the note. She didn't tell anyone about it. Instead, she placed it inside her notebook and carried it with her to work. She worked at a small library in town. Most of her time was spent organizing books, helping children with homework, and keeping the shelves dust-free. It was peaceful, but also lonely. As she arranged books on the top shelf, a young teacher from the nearby school entered and said, "Mira D, we missed you at the wedding last night." Mira gave a polite smile. "I watched from my window. It looked beautiful." The teacher paused for a moment, then said gently, "You know, people talk about you. They don't understand why someone like you is still unmarried." Mira's smile faded. "Maybe they don't need to understand." The teacher nodded, then left. Mira sat behind the counter, her heart tired. But when she opened her notebook, during lunch, her eyes fell on the letter again. That evening, as she walked back home, something strange happened. A man passed her on the street. She had never seen him before. He looked to be in his 40s, wore simple clothes, and had kind eyes. He didn't say anything, just gave her a soft smile and walked away. Mira felt a strange warmth in that smile. It wasn't flirtatious, it wasn't mocking, it was respectful, noticing. Over the next few days, Mira saw him again, once near the vegetable market, once outside the temple, and once standing quietly across the road when she was locking up the library. He never spoke, just nodded and walked away. Then, one evening, another note appeared. This time it was inside her mailbox. Same handwriting, same neat words. "Don't let the world decide your story. It's not too late." Mira felt her heartbeat rise. She looked around again, but no one was there. Was it the same man? Who was he? And how did he know what she needed to hear? She didn't feel afraid. In fact, for the first time in years, she felt seen. Still, a part of her was cautious. Was it a joke? Was someone playing with her feelings? She remembered how cruel people could be, especially to women like her, those who crossed the so-called marriageable age. That night, she sat down and wrote a letter of her own. To the one sending these letters, "Thank you. But why now? And who are you?" She didn't know where to send it, so she carried it with her in her notebook. Days passed. She didn't see the man again. No more notes. Mira started to think she had imagined it all. Then, one afternoon, a small gift box was placed on her library desk. There was no name. Inside the box was a tiny key and a note. "The answer is waiting." Where it all began. Her hands shook as she read the message. What did it mean? Where? What began? Her mind raced through memories, old places, familiar faces, long-forgotten moments. As she closed the library for the day, she turned back and looked around. The mystery had just begun, and her heart, after so many silent years, was finally awake. Something was happening, and she had no idea how deeply it was going to change her life. Mira walked home slowly, the tiny key gripped tightly in her hand. The note echoed in her mind again and again. The answer is waiting, where it all began. But where had it all really begun? Her heart beat faster with every step. She reached her room, closed the door quietly, and sat on the bed, placing the key and note in front of her. She stared at them for a long time. Her childhood, college, The library? Or was it something else? She opened her old trunk at the foot of her bed. Inside were memories she had locked away years ago, school certificates, faded photographs, letters, and a few trinkets. Slowly, she pulled out an old photo album. One picture caught her attention immediately. It was from her college days. A group of students sat under a large banyan tree, smiling after a theater rehearsal, and there she was laughing freely. Next to her sat a boy, thin, seeking but with gentle eyes. Kabir, a name she hadn't spoken in years. He had been quiet, never part of the popular group, but he was always there helping the juniors, managing backstage, fixing lights, offering water bottles. During long rehearsals, Mira remembered once twisting her ankle during practice, and it was Kabir who had carried her to the doctor, quietly, without making a scene. She hadn't thought about him in so long. They were never close, never even exchanged more than polite greetings. But now, something clicked. Could it be him? The next morning she couldn't concentrate at the library. Her mind kept drifting. She decided to go to her college, just to walk around, maybe to remember more. The building had changed over the years, but some corners still looked the same. The red bricks, the dusty corridors, the old drama room. She walked slowly toward the back garden, and there it was, the banyan tree. Her footsteps slowed. She reached the spot where they had all once sat. The earth felt familiar. She knelt down, brushing away some dry leaves, and then her fingers hit something hard, a tiny metal box. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside was a letter. Same handwriting. Mira, this is where I first saw you, not just as a girl in class, but as someone with fire in her eyes. You laughed, like you belonged to the world, and I only watched from the edges. I wanted to speak, I wanted to say so much, but life took us different ways. I didn't forget you. Not once. I saw your name years later in a school newsletter, and I remembered that smile. You may not know me yet, but I have always known you. Mira's fingers trembled as she read the words again and again. Kabir, it had to be him. But why now? After all these years, and how had he found her again? Her eyes welled up. She sat under the tree, lost in the swirl of past and present. People walked by, but she didn't notice. The sun began to set, and a cold breeze brushed against her skin, making her shiver. Then suddenly, a voice spoke from behind. You found it. Mira turned sharply. It was him. Kabir stood there, just as she remembered, but older, his hair peppered with gray, a few wrinkles around his eyes. But those eyes? They hadn't changed. Still gentle, still kind. She stood slowly, unsure what to say. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Kabir smiled softly. You don't have to say anything, Mira finally whispered. It was you. All this time, he nodded. Why? She asked. Kabir took a step closer. Because no one saw you the way I did. Back then, I was too unsure, too quiet. And then time passed. I thought you must be married, happy, far away from this world. But then I read about you in a local school article last year. I saw your picture, and I saw the loneliness in your eyes. Tears filled Mira's eyes. So you followed me? No, he said gently. I watched from a distance, just to make sure you were okay. I didn't want to disturb your life. I didn't plan to appear. But on your birthday, when I saw you sitting alone in the park, I couldn't stop myself. You left that note. He nodded. And the flowers, and the second note, and this box. Mira looked away. Her emotions were a messenger, confusion, and something warm she didn't want to name yet. You could have just said hello. I was scared, Kabir admitted, that you'd laugh, or worse, tell me to leave. I didn't want to ruin the little piece you had. Mira shook her head slowly. You didn't ruin anything, but this is a lot. I know, he said. I just wanted you to know you're not invisible. You never were. They stood in silence. The sky above turned orange and purple. The next morning, Mira stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Her hair was still damp from her shower, and for the first time in years, she carefully applied a small amount of Kajal to her eyes. She didn't know why, but something inside her felt different. Not louder, but more awake. As she walked to the library, the streets looked the same, but her steps were lighter. She didn't see Kabir anywhere, though a small part of her hoped she would. Her mind was still full of questions, but there was no fear. Just a strange, quiet warmth. At the library, she tried to focus on her work, arranging books on the top shelf. But her hands paused when a young girl approached the counter. Are you Mira, ma'am? The girl asked shyly. Double quotes. Yes? Mira smiled. The girl handed her a small envelope. A man asked me to give this to you. He said you'd understand. Mira thanked her and opened the envelope after the girl walked away. Inside was a short note. If you ever feel ready to talk, I'll be waiting. Same place, same time. Kabir. Her heart skipped. She looked at the clock. It was already past 4 p.m. Same place. Same time. She closed the library early, informing the staff she had a family matter. Her hands trembled slightly as she walked towards the park. The same bench where she had found the first note. He was already there. Kabir stood near the bench. His back turned. He wore a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, hands in his pockets. When she approached, he turned, and for a moment, they both just stood there. Mira finally spoke. You still like being quiet, don't you? Kabir smiled. Only when silence feels safer than words. She sat on the bench. He followed, keeping a respectful distance. I didn't expect to see you again, she said. I wasn't sure you'd come, he replied. There was a pause, then Mira looked at him seriously. Why now, after all these years? Kabir took a deep breath. Because I didn't want to die with a regret I could still fix. Mira looked away. But I'm not who I used to be. I've changed. So have I, he said softly. But I never stopped remembering the girl who made the entire college laugh during that terrible play. You made mistakes on stage, but you laughed at yourself. That courage stayed with me. She turned to him, her voice softer now. That girl disappeared a long time ago. No, Kabir said gently. She just got buried under expectations, pain, and silence. She's still there. Mira didn't reply. Instead, she pulled out the letters from her notebook and placed them on the bench. These, what do they mean to you? Kabir looked at them. They were my way of saying what I couldn't say back then, that I saw you, that I still do. A bird chirped above them, the only sound in the quiet space between words. You didn't expect anything from me? Mira asked. Kabir shook his head. I didn't come to take anything. I came to give, even if it's just a little bit of hope. Mira smiled sadly. You know, I used to dream of love when I was young, but dreams turn bitter when the world reminds you again and again that you've waited too long. I never thought love had a deadline, Kabir said. She turned to him. And what if I told you I don't know how to love anymore? Kabir looked into her eyes. Then let me remind you. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of possibilities. I'm not promising anything, Mira said. I'm not asking for promises, Kabir replied. Just a chance. They sat until the sun dipped below the trees. Mira stood first. If people see us, they'll talk. Kabir stood too. Let them, maybe their words won't hurt as much if we stop hiding. As she walked away, he didn't follow. He just watched her go, like always, with calm eyes. That night, Mira didn't write in her notebook. She just held the letters in her hand and stared out the window. But the world wasn't quiet for long. The next morning, while serving tea to her sister-in-law, she overheard whispers from the living room. Two neighbors were visiting. I saw her yesterday, one said, sitting with some man in the park. At her age, shameless. She should be preparing for retirement, not romance. The other added. Her sister-in-law didn't say anything. Mira stood behind the curtain, her hands cold. The words felt like knives, but she didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she walked into the room, faced them calmly, and said, if your eyes have enough time to follow my life, maybe look in the mirror too. The room fell silent. She left her tea untouched and went to the library, heart pounding not with fear, but anger. She had stayed silent for years, but now, a voice inside her was rising. Later that day, Kabir arrived at the library. She met him outside and told him everything. He listened quietly. Do you want me to step back? He asked. Mira looked at him. No, I want to step forward. Kabir smiled. Then I'll walk beside you. That evening, as she walked home, her sister-in-law stopped her. What are you doing, Mira? She asked. Meera replied calmly. Living. Something I should have done long ago. But the backlash was just beginning. A distant cousin posted a photo online. Mira and Kabir sitting on the park bench. The caption was cruel. Still waiting for a groom at 39? Desperate much. The photo spread quickly among relatives and neighbors. Mira saw it later that night. She stared at the screen, her face pale. The piece was cracking, and she knew this time. The storm wouldn't be quiet. Mira stared at the screen, the image glaring back at her. It was a grainy photo, her and Kabir sitting under the banyan tree, mid-conversation, unaware of the eyes watching them. The caption stung more than the picture itself. Words like desperate, shameless, and expired filled the comments underneath. Most were anonymous, some from distant relatives, a few from neighbors she greeted every morning. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper, betrayal. Not once had she hurt anyone, yet now she was being mocked for doing something as simple as sitting with a man Kabir called that evening. She let it ring. He messaged her, don't let them dim your light. I'm here. She put the phone down and sat by her window. For years she had sat here watching others' live weddings, birthdays, festivals. She had smiled, clapped, even helped with gifts and arrangements. But now that it was her turn to feel something, even quietly, they couldn't accept it. A knock at her door broke the silence. It was her brother. Mira, can we talk? He asked, voice low. She nodded and stepped aside to let him in. He looked uncomfortable as he sat. Some people from the they saw that picture. They're talking. I know, she said calmly. He hesitated. Look, I don't want trouble for the family. We have kids, our name. Mira raised an eyebrow. So I should stay alone forever to protect your name. That's not what I'm saying, he said, avoiding her eyes. But this Kabir, who is he? You barely know him. She looked directly at him. I've known silence for 20 years. That was more dangerous than any stranger. He didn't respond. I won't stop seeing him just because others are. Uncomfortable, she added. For once, I'll choose for myself. Her brother stood up quietly. You've changed. Mira smiled faintly. No, I've returned to who I was before the world told me to be quiet. That night, she texted Kabir, let's meet tomorrow. I'm not hiding anymore. The next day, they met at a quiet cafe. She told him everything, the gossip, the photo, her brother's warnings. Kabir listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, do you regret meeting me? She shook her head. Not for a second. He reached across the table, offering his hand. Then let's face this together. She placed her hand in his. For once, it didn't matter who was watching, but the world wasn't done punishing her. A few days later, the library supervisor called her in. He looked apologetic. Mira G, there's been a complaint. About what? She asked, confused. About your public conduct? He said uncomfortably. The board received that photo. Some parents are saying you're setting a bad example. Mira's face turned pale. You're saying I can't have a personal life? I'm saying we're a small town, he said gently, and people are cruel. She walked out of his office without saying a word. Her legs felt weak, her head spun. She had worked there for 12 years, built their reading program, decorated every children's corner, and now, it was all at risk, because she dared to be seen. Kabir met her at the gate that evening. You don't have to say anything, he said. I know. She looked at him, tears finally forming. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted a little happiness. Quiet, peaceful happiness. He held her hand. You still can have it, but not everyone will clap when you choose joy. She broke down and his arms silenced sobs that had waited too long to escape. He let her cry, not rushing her, not filling the air with false comfort. Later that night, Mira sat with her sister-in-law. You've been quiet, Mira said softly. Her sister-in-law looked up. Because I'm scared too. Of what? Of what they'll say if I support you. Of how they'll look at my daughter when she grows up. Mira nodded slowly. But what if your daughter sees you stand up for another woman? What if that teaches her strength? There was silence. Then her sister-in-law whispered, you're braver than I ever was. The next day, Mira handed her resignation to the library. If my presence makes people uncomfortable, I won't stay where I'm not respected. The supervisor was stunned. But we didn't want you to. You already did, she said gently, by staying silent. That evening, Kabir brought her a gift. It was a second-hand typewriter. Old, a little rusty, but still strong. You once said you used to write, he reminded her. She touched the keys with trembling fingers. I used to write letters to a future I didn't believe in. The next morning, Mira's phone buzzed non-stop. Her article had gone viral overnight. Friends, old classmates, and even strangers were messaging her with words of admiration. Many called her brave. Some shared their own stories, widows, single, mothers, women above 30 who were mocked for wanting love, for dressing a certain way, or simply for existing too loudly. Mera read each message carefully, her heart full but heavy. For every 10 supportive voices, there were 2 cruel ones. Shameless woman, one comment said. Looking for attention, said another. But she didn't let those stop her. Not now. Not after all this time. Kabir came to see her that evening. He brought tea from her favorite stall and a smile that never rushed her. You've shaken something, he said, handing her the cup. I didn't want to, she replied. I just wanted to speak. Sometimes that's all it takes. They sat in silence, sipping tea, watching the sunset. But peace never stayed for long. The next day, Mira was called by a well-known online women's magazine. They wanted to feature her story, not just her article, but her entire journey. She hesitated. Will it make things worse? She asked Kabir. He answered gently. Or will it make things better for someone else? She agreed. The interview went live 3 days later. Her picture was on the cover wearing a simple cotton sari, standing by her window, calm and strong. The headline read, Mira, the woman who refused to disappear. It reached more people than she ever imagined. She received interview offers, podcast invitations, and speaking requests from women's colleges. But just as the spotlight grew brighter, the shadows around her darkened. That night, her cousin Preti showed up at the door, eyes full of fake concern. Didi, what are you doing? She asked as soon as she stepped in. Mira frowned. What do you mean? You're embarrassing the family. Everyone's talking. Nani called this morning. She's crying. Chachaji is furious. Mira stayed calm. Let them be pretty. Shook her head. You think the world will change because of your little story. People are laughing behind your back. I don't care anymore. Well, we do, Preti snapped. Your choices are affecting all of us. My rishta got cancelled yesterday because they Googled our family and saw your interview. Mira's face hardened. Then maybe you should. Find someone who doesn't fear a woman with a voice. Preti stared at her in disbelief. You're selfish. Mira took a deep breath. No, I've just stopped being silent. Preti left angrily, slamming the door. Later that night, Kabir texted, still proud of you, she replied. Still scared, but I'm learning. The next morning, a new kind of storm hit. An anonymous blog post began spreading through local WhatsApp groups. It had her photo and twisted her story, calling her a homewrecker, saying she was dating a married man, and suggesting Kabir had left his wife for her. It was all lies. But people didn't need truth. They only needed gossip. By noon, Mira's brother barged into her room. What is this filth? He shouted, waving his phone. Is it true? Is Kabir married? No, she cried. Of course not. Who's saying this? He didn't listen. You've brought shame to this house. Everyone's calling me. Even the school called and said my son is being teased. Mira's heart broke. I didn't write that blog. It's false. But no one cares, he shouted. You're the center of every joke now. I want you out by the end of the week. Her breath caught. What? You heard me? I can't protect you anymore. Go live your modern life somewhere else. She packed slowly that night. Her hands moved on their own, Sari's notebooks, her typewriter. She didn't cry. Not until she saw her nephew standing silently at the door. Auntie, where will you go? He asked, eyes full of tears. She knelt down and hugged him. Somewhere I can be me. She moved into a small rented room near the temple. Just one bed, a small stove, and a single window, but it was hers. Kabir came that evening, carrying groceries and a soft blanket. You shouldn't have to do this alone, he said. Mira looked at him. They think you're married. That you left someone for me. He nodded. I saw the post. It's all false. But the damage? She whispered. Are you tired? He looked at her firmly. No, I'm angry, but I'm not leaving. They ate dinner sitting on the floor, laughing quietly at how small the plates were. For the first time in her life, Mira realized something powerful. She had lost everything they told her was important: status, home, name, but she had finally found herself still. The rumors didn't stop. A group of neighbors began avoiding her. Shopkeepers stared. A few clients at the library complained, and the board revoked her monthly pension. And then came the biggest shock. The online magazine that had first published her article suddenly took it down, without warning. When she contacted them, they said, "We've received legal threats from an anonymous party. We can't take risks." She was being erased again, but this time, she wouldn't let it happen. She picked up her typewriter and began writing something new. Not just an article, not just a letter, but a story. Her story. One no one could delete. And this time, she was going to publish it herself. Mira typed late into the night, each key on the old typewriter echoing like a drumbeat against the quiet walls. Words poured out of her like rain after a long drought. She didn't stop to edit or think hard, she just let it flow. The pain, the shame, the betrayal, the silence, all of it found its way into the pages. But alongside it came strength, love, truth, and fire. She wasn't writing to please anyone. She was writing to exist. Kabir visited the next morning with fresh fruit and 2 cups of chai. He saw the pile of papers on the floor and smiled. You've started. She nodded, eyes tired but shining. It's not an article anymore. It's a book. He sat beside her on the mat. Then it's about time the world reads you. But Mira was still scared. What if no one published it? What if they mocked her again? What if her truth made things worse? She looked at Kabir and asked softly, will you still be here when the world turns away? He reached over and took her hand. Even if the world burns, I'll bring you water. She didn't speak after that. She just pressed her forehead gently against his shoulder, taking in the comfort she had denied herself for so long. Over the next few weeks, she poured her life into the pages. Each chapter told a part of her journey, just about Kabir, but about all the silent years before him. The days she sat through weddings pretending to smile, the moments she wanted to disappear, the letters she had written to herself late at night, the cruel jokes, the lost job, the eviction, and how, through it all, a stranger reminded her she was still alive. When she finished the manuscript, she printed a few copies and mailed them to independent publishers. Most rejected her within a week. One said her story was too simple, another asked her to make it more dramatic. But Mira didn't want drama, she wanted truth. Then, one publisher replied. The editor's email was short. I cried. We want to publish this. Mira stared at the message for a long time. She read it again and again, afraid it would vanish. Kabir saw her from across the room and asked, what happened? She whispered. They said yes. He rushed over and hugged her tight. The world's about to hear you now. But even in that happiness, Mira knew trouble wasn't far. A few days later, her sister-in-law came to visit her tiny rented room for the first time. She brought sweets and a shawl. They know you're getting published, she said quietly. Now everyone wants to pretend they supported you all along. Mira gave a small laugh. They'll probably say I'm lucky. Her sister-in-law nodded. They don't know how heavy your silence was. After a pause, she added, your brother misses you. He won't say it, but he does. I miss him too, Mira said. But I can't go back to that house. Not as someone they want to control. You don't have to, her sister-in-law said. Maybe someday he'll come to you. The next morning, Kabir came with a surprise. He handed her a ticket, a book reading event in Delhi. He said, they want you to speak. Mira's hands shook. Speak. In front of people? They already read your words. Now they want to hear your voice. She looked at him nervously. What if I fail? Kabir smiled. You didn't fail when they called you expired. You didn't fail when they threw you out. You won't fail now. They traveled by train. Mira looked out the window most of the way, watching the trees blur past. She held Kabir's hand tightly under her shawl. This journey was not just about Delhi, it was about finally facing the world without hiding. At the event, The room was full of people, journalists, writers, college students, even women in their 60s holding her book. When she walked up to the mic, there was silence. Her knees shook. Her voice trembled at first, but then she saw a girl in the front row, barely 20 eyes, full of fear and hope, and Mira remembered herself. She took a deep breath and began. Was 39 when I realized I had never truly lived. For years, I waited for someone to choose me, but what I didn't know was I had to choose myself first. The room hung on every word. She told him everything. Her loneliness, the cruelty, the letters, Kabir, the lies, the pain, the courage. When she finished, there was silence again. And then, applause. People stood, clapped, some even cried. Later that night, as they walked back to their hotel, Mira stopped and looked at Kabir. I think I'm finally free, she said. He smiled. You've always been free, you just needed to fly. Back in their hometown, the news spread fast. Suddenly, people who once mocked her were sharing her interviews. She was invited to schools and libraries. Young girls started sending her letters asking for advice. The days after the book launch moved like quiet waves, steady, warm, and strange. Mira still lived in her tiny room, but everything around her felt bigger now. People recognized her in markets. Women stopped her on the street to hug her, to tell her she had given them courage. Shopkeepers who once stared, now smiled. Even the neighbor who used to whisper cruel things offered her mangoes with an awkward grin. But not everyone celebrated her rise. One morning, Mira received a letter. With no sender name, it was short, typed, and cruel. You fooled everyone, but not me. We know your story is exaggerated. Soon, the truth will come out. She folded the letter quietly and slipped it into her drawer, locking it without a word. She didn't tell Kabir. He was already busy helping her prepare for her next event, a speech at a women's university. She didn't want to spoil his joy, but that night, sleep didn't come. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Even now, someone wanted her to suffer. Someone couldn't accept that she had risen, that she had found peace, and maybe, love. The next day, she got a call from the publishing house. Mira G, the editor said, sounding uneasy. We received an email with old photos of you and Kabir. Someone is claiming you were involved while he was married. Mira's heart dropped. That's not true. We know, the editor said quickly. We believe you, but the media might not. We just wanted to warn you. She thanked them, but her fingers were already cold. Later that evening, she finally told Kabir. He listened without flinching. There are always people who throw stones at a rising sun, he said. Mira looked at him. Were you ever married? No, he said firmly. I was once engaged. It didn't work out, but I've never been married, I swear. She nodded. She believed him. Her heart did. But the world didn't care about truth. They cared about spectacle. A week later, the news broke online. Controversy around author Mira's love story. Is it all a lie? Fake interviews? Blurred photos? Twisted timelines? Her inbox flooded with messages, some hateful, some confused, some just curious. Mira sat in silence as the world debated her life like a television drama. She could feel the fear, creeping back in the same fear that had lived inside her for years. The fear of being seen. The fear of being alone. Kabi arrived with groceries, his face tight. I saw the posts, he said. They're trying to crush you. She didn't respond. He stepped closer. Mira, talk to me. She looked up at him with tired eyes. I thought I had finally escaped. But maybe women like me never really get free. He knelt beside her. Then we fight again. One more time. As many times as it takes. She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, I'm tired, Kabir. I know, he said, holding her hand. But this time, you're not tired. Alone, that night, instead of writing, Mira sat in front of a camera. She decided to speak directly. She posted a video with a single title, The Truth from Mira. In the video, her face was calm, her voice clear. She said everything. She shared her journey without drama, without tears. She told the truth about Kabir, about the lies, about the jealousy that fuels rumors. Every woman who dares to live loudly is punished, she said. They call us liars, loose, lost, but we are just tired of hiding. The video went viral. Within hours, thousands of women reshared it. Some men, too. Even the biggest news channels invited her for interviews. But she declined. I've said what I needed to say, she told Kabir. Now let my truth breathe. Days passed. The noise began to fade. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly woman knocked on Mira's door one morning. She wore a faded sari and walked with a cane. Mira offered her water. The woman sat down and said, I watched your video, and I want you to know, I believe you. Thank you, Mira replied. My husband died 10 years ago, the woman said. Since then, people told me to shrink, to disappear. I never left my house after 6 in the evening. But today, I came here. Just to see you. Mira smiled. You're brave. The woman held her hand. No, you made me brave. After she left, Mira stood by the door for a long time. She realized something then. Her fight wasn't about rumors or gossip or even love. It was about women like that, forgotten, silenced, and invisible. If her words gave even one person the courage to step outside, to speak, to breathe, then it was all worth it. That evening, she and Kabir walked to the park. The same old bench waited for them. The banyan tree stood tall above. "You remember the first time you found my letter?" he asked. "I never thought that small note would start a revolution," she smiled. He looked at her, eyes filled with pride. "You started it. I just reminded you who you were." She leaned back and looked at the stars. "Do you think it'll ever stop? The judgment, the hate." He was quiet for a while, then said, "No, but maybe next time, someone else will stand up first. Because of you." She nodded slowly, and then, for the first time in a long time, Mira laughed. A full, loud, unashamed laugh. People nearby looked, but she didn't care. Let them see her. She wasn't afraid anymore. The morning was quiet, the kind of stillness that felt earned. Mira stood by her window, sipping tea, watching the sunrise. Slowly, over the rooftops, life had changed. Not in loud ways, but in gentle shifts. She no longer flinched at whispers. She no longer questioned her reflection. Her room was still small, her income still modest, but her heart was no longer crowded with fear. Today was a big day. Her book, The Woman Who Waited, was being released nationwide in physical stores. A local bookstore had invited her for a launch event. Mira had never been to such an event before. The idea of sitting in front of strangers, signing books with her name, still felt strange. Kabir offered to come with her, but she asked him to meet her there instead. "I want to walk alone today," she told him, "because for the first time, I can." She wore a soft blue sari, the same one she had once tucked away, thinking she'd wear it on her wedding day. Today, she wore it not for a man or a ceremony but for herself. As she stepped out onto the street, a few familiar faces waved at her. The same neighbors who once crossed the road to avoid her now smiled. One auntie even called out, "Mira, beta, I saw you on TV. You spoke so well." Mira nodded with a polite smile, though she remembered clearly how that same woman once whispered that Mira was a disgrace. But forgiveness had a strange power. It freed her. Not them. At the bookstore, a small crowd had gathered. Chairs were placed, flowers arranged, her books stacked neatly on a table with her name in bold print. Mira stood near the back for a moment, just watching. Her photo was on the wall, and under it a quote from her book. "The world told me I was too late, but I arrived right on time for myself." She walked up to the front as the host welcomed her warmly. Kabir arrived just as the event began, standing quietly at the side, camera in hand, smiling like he always did, like she was the only one in the room. The host asked her questions about the book, her inspiration, her journey. Mira answered, each one, calmly and clearly. The audience listened with respect. Then, during the Q&A, a young woman stood up. She wore glasses and spoke nervously. "Mira G, I'm 35, still unmarried. My family says I've lost my chance. Reading your book? It made me feel seen. But how do I stop feeling ashamed?" Mira stood and walked over to her. She took the young woman's hand and said, "By remembering that love isn't a deadline, and your worth isn't reduced by a number. Don't let the world's fear become your truth." The woman teared up and nodded. After the event, people lined up for signed copies. Some hugged her, some just smiled. One girl whispered, "You saved me." Another handed her a small note. "Thank you for writing what I never could." Kabir watched quietly from a distance, his eyes full. When it was all over, he walked her home. The streets were calm, the wind soft. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. As they reached her door, Mira turned to him. "I used to think love had to come in the shape of fireworks and music," she said. "But now I know it can come in the form of silence, too, of standing beside someone quietly for years." Kabir smiled. "Then I guess silence was always our language." She held his hand. "Will you stay?" He didn't answer with words. He just nodded. From that day on, Kabir began spending more time in her world, not as a guest, but as a part of it. He cooked sometimes, wrote beside her, read her drafts. He never tried to take over her space. He simply added warmth to it. Weeks turned into months. Mira's book began appearing in schools, reading circles, and university syllabi. She was invited to more talks, sometimes far away. She traveled with Kabir or alone, always returning to her little room that now felt like a home. One day, her brother visited again. He brought his daughter, Mira's niece, who had once been too shy to speak. "Masi," the girl said, "my school is doing a project on inspiring women. I chose you." Mira knelt and hugged her. She looked at her brother, who had tears in his eyes. "You changed," he said. "You changed all of us." She smiled. "No, I just stopped being afraid." And that gave others permission to stop, too. Time moved on, as it always does. But Mira no longer feared it. Her second book was about to be released. It was called When No One Chose Me. It wasn't just her story anymore. It was a collection of letters from women across the country. She had written responses to each one, weaving them into a journey of collective strength. The night before the launch, Mira and Kabir sat on the rooftop, looking at the stars. "Do you ever regret anything?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "No," she said. "Even the pain led me here."